Now, can you see it?
Yes, we see the abstract part of your presentation,
Okay.
but it's in a PDF form. It's a Word.
Yes.
It's a Word in PDF form.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is a text. First, I have to make the speak in English or in Greek.
We prefer in English because we have broadcast out of Greece in abroad, so it's better to have in English.
Okay, and how many minutes I have?
You have plenty of minutes. Don't worry about it.
Okay, perfect. So, we're starting then. A nuanced understanding of geopolitics is indeed crucial for comprehending global dynamics and the fundamental role that an informed public plays in upholding democracy. This analytical perspective, deeply anchored in the deterministic influence of political, economic, military, and geographic factors, is significantly informed by the realist tradition within the field of international relations. This tradition asserts that the behavior of states is not random, but rather shaped by underlying constraints in societies, which create observable and to non extent predictable patterns in international affairs. Such a viewpoint encourages a methodical analysis of historical events alongside current geopolitical developments to discern these patterns. The significance of trade deficits within the realms of geoeconomics and geopolitics spans across the domains of international economics, politics, and strategic considerations. A trade deficit emerges when a nation's importation of goods and services surpasses its exports, resulting in a net export of domestic currency to international markets. Despite their frequency portrayable as determinant in public discussions, the consequences of trade deficits are nuanced and have diverse impacts on a country's economic vitality, geopolitical connections, and strategic stance on the global stage. The economic relationships between China and major Western powers have become increasingly uneven over the last decade. China is exporting much more to the EU and USA than it imports from them, creating a growing gap in trade. This situation reflects the deep economic ties between these regions, which can affect both economic strategies and political dynamics on the global stage. The imbalance points to China's rising economic influence and the complex interdependencies in the global economy. The trade deficit between EU and China in the last 10 years has reached to $2 trillion, and the trade deficit between USA and China has reached to the $3 trillion. Introduction is needed a compelling insight into the role of geopolitics to emphasize how geography, politics, economics, and military factors shape how countries interact on the world stage. The nations act in predictable ways based on these influences rather than purely on ideals or individual leaders' choices. By studying past events and current global conditions, we can better understand the anticipated how countries may behave. This view highlights the importance of citizens being well informed about these complex actors to participate effectively in their democratic system and make sense of international events. Over the past 10 years, we see a high increase of deficits between EU, USA, and China. These are signals have critical dimensions and worth exploring. The growing trade deficits indicate that both EU and USA are increasingly reliant on Chinese goods and services. The deficits are partly financed through capital inflows from China, which may include investments in government debt, real estate, and other assets within EU and USA. While this can be beneficial, offering liquidity and funding for various projects, it is also increased economic exposure to Chinese economic policies and conditions. The substantial trade imbalances afford China considerable economic leverage over the EU and USA, potentially influencing their policy decisions or critical matters, ranging from trade policies to international diplomacy. The reliance on Chinese exports for essential goods, including technology and medical supplies, has highlighted vulnerabilities in EU and USA supply chains. In response to the burgeoning trade deficits in their implications, the EU and USA have been considering their trade policies and strategies, policies and strategic priorities. Both regions are exploring ways to reduce dependency on Chinese imports by diversifying supply chains, encouraging domestic production, and establishing trade partnerships with other countries. Increased security of Chinese investments in critical sectors, aiming to protect national security interests and ensure technological sovereignty. Negotiations for fairer trade agreements with China and efforts to resolve disputes through international mechanisms such as the World Trade Organization are ongoing. Unfair international competition from China sustains enormous trade surpluses in its favor, which reached to $1 trillion in 2023. China's unfair competition stems from the artificial evaluation of its currency to make its export cheaper, the lack of protection for the intellectual property rights and trademarks, the state subsidies provided to export business, the imposition of capital controls on capital flows, and more. These forces countries to impose import tariffs to limit their trade deficits, and in parallel, initiatives to boost domestic industries' competitiveness through innovation, research and development, and support for key sectors are being implemented. Understanding the world through geopolitics. The assertion that the study of geopolitics can reveal the underlying order in what appears to be a chaotic world grounded in the belief that there are fundamental laws governing international relations. These laws, determined by geography, economic resources, military capabilities, and political structures, shape the destinies of nations. The work of historians and political scientists such as Paul Kennedy in The Rise and the Fall of the Great Powers and John Messerschmitt, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics, underscore this perspective by highlighting how the rise and fall of nations can often be traced back to their geopolitical strategies and the material resources at disposal. The role of learned public. The concept of learned public is a stabilizing force within democracies, is an enduring one. This concept raises important questions about the role of education and media in shaping a society capable of sustaining democratic institutions. It suggests that beyond formal education, there is a need of foregoing civic engagement and critical thinking skills among the general population. The learned public serves as a counterbalance to populist tendencies and knee-jerk reactions to complex issues, advocating for nuanced, evidence-based approaches to policymaking. However, this idea also presents challenges in an era of information overload and polarized media landscapes. The fragmentation of information sources and the rise of echo chambers can make it difficult for a truly diverse learned public to emerge and engage in constructive dialogue. Additionally, there is a tension between the ideal of an informed elite guiding public discourse and the democratic principle of equal participation for all citizens. The concept also intersects with debates about technocracy versus popular sovereignty. While expertise is crucial for addressing complex global challenges, there is a risk for creating a disconnect between policymakers and the broader public if decisions are seen as being made solely by an educated elite. Ultimately, the idea of a learned public is a stabilizing force highlights the importance of civic education, media literacy, and fostering space for thoughtful public discourse. It suggests that democracy resilience depends not just on institutions, but on the collective wisdom and engagement of its citizens. The idea echoes the arguments made by scholars like Habermas about the importance of the public sphere and deliberative democracy, where rational discourse among an informed citizenry shapes public opinion and influence government policy. The survival of democracy, in this view, hinges on the existence and influence of an educated populace that prioritize understanding over ideology. The imperative geopolitical education. Educating the public about geopolitics become a crucial task in the framework. Institutions of learning, media organizations, and public intellectuals play a vital role in disseminating knowledge about the geopolitical forces that shape global events. The challenge lies in presenting complex geopolitical concerns in an access manner, fostering global citizenry capable of change in informed discourse. The proliferation of online learning platforms, open access journals, and policy think tanks dedicated to international affairs reflects an ongoing effort to meet this challenge. Emphasis should be placed on the impact of the trade deficits, especially when they result from unfair international trade practices. Challenges and criticism. However, this geopolitical framework is not without its critics. Critics argue that an overly deterministic view of geopolitics can neglect the agency of smaller states, non-state actors, and the role of human creativity and innovation in shaping outcomes. Furthermore, the emphasis on a learned public raises questions about inclusivity and the potential elitism in assuming that only a certain segment of society is capable of contributing to informed political discourse. Scholars like Amartya Sen in Development as Freedom and Martha Nussbaum in Grading Capabilities have emphasized the importance of considering a broader range of human factors, including development, education, and human rights, understanding the shaping global affairs. Trade deficits. The economic and geopolitical importance of trade deficits lies at the intersection of international economic politics and strategy. A trade deficit occurs when a country imports more goods and services than it exports, leading to a net outflow of domestic currency to foreign markets. While often viewed negatively in popular discourse, the implications of trade deficit are complex and multifaceted, influencing a nation's economic health, its geopolitical relationship, and its strategic posture. The economic implications. Capital inflows and investment. Trade deficits are typically balanced by capital inflows, meaning that the money spent on imports returns to the deficit-running country in the form of investment, often government bonds or direct investments in industries. This can lead to a symbolic relationship between exporter and importer nations, with the farmer relying on the latter for economic growth and the latter depending on the former for capital investment. There are currency valuation implications. Persistent trade deficits can affect a country's currency value. A weakening currency can make exports cheaper and imports more expensive, which may eventually help in correcting the trade imbalance. However, currency manipulation to maintain a trade surplus is a tactic some countries use, leading to geopolitical tensions and accusations of unfair trade practices. So let's go to the discussion. Trade deficits are a crucial element of the economic landscape, influencing international relations, economic policies, and global power dynamics. While they can pose challenges, they also create opportunities for cooperation, investment, and strategic partnership. Understanding the geoeconomic and geopolitical importance of trade deficits is essential for policymakers aiming to navigate the complexities of the global economy, ensuring national interests are protected with fostering international economic stability and growth. The trade deficits of both European Union and United States with China have showcased significant expansion over the past decades, underscoring deep and multifaceted economic independencies that carry profound geoeconomic and geopolitical implications. The impact on domestic industries. The growing trade deficits indicate that both EU and USA are increasingly reliant on Chinese goods and services, while this can offer consumers a wider range of choices at lower prices. It also raises concerns about the impact on domestic industries, potentially leading to job losses in sectors unable to compete with Chinese imports. In the capital flows, the deficits are partly financed through capital flows from China, which may include investment in government debt, real estate, and other assets within EU and USA. While this can be beneficial, offering liquidity and funding for various projects, it is also increases economic exposure to Chinese economic policies and conditions. So let's see the supply chain dependencies. The reliance of Chinese exports for essential goods, including technology and medical supplies, has highlighted vulnerabilities in EU and USA supply chains, especially evidenced during crises like COVID pandemic. Both regions are exploring ways to reduce dependency on Chinese imports by diversifying supply chains, encouraging domestic production, and establishing trade partnerships with other countries. Increased security of Chinese investments in critical sectors aiming to protect national security interests and ensure technological sovereignty. And let's see now the inflation implications. The trade imbalance in the EU and USA can lead to inflation and economic challenges. To address these imbalances, governments may borrow money or increase the money supply, which can cause inflation. As a result, central banks raise interest rates to combat inflation, but this makes borrowing more expensive and can slow the economic growth. Foreign investments don't necessarily help, as profits from these investments leave the country. The trade deficits themselves contribute to inflation and instability. Economic experts who suggest that recent large government deficits are linked to inflation are many. It also notes that rising energy prices tend to increase inflation, similar to what happened in the mid-1970s. This highlights the complex relationship between trade deficits, government actions, inflation, and economic growth, emphasizing the challenges faced by economy dealing with these issues. And we are now in the conclusion. The evolving economic landscape has sparked the debates on the merits of globalization versus protectionism, with policymakers grappling to find an optimal balance. The EU and USA have begun implementing measures to reduce their reliance on Chinese imports, particularly in critical sectors like technology and pharmaceuticals. This shift towards friend-shoring or near-shoring aims to diversify supply chains and bolster domestic manufacturing capabilities. Simultaneously, China's Belt and Road Initiative and its effort to internationalize the yuan challenge the traditional dominance of Western economic institutions. These moves reflect Beijing's ambition to reshape global economy governance and expand its influence beyond trade. The trade imbalances have also highlighted the need of structural reforms within the EU and the USA economies to enhance competitiveness and innovation. Investments in education, research and development, and infrastructure are seen as crucial to maintaining technological leadership, and economic dynamism. Moreover, the trade deficit have become intertwined with broader geopolitical tensions, including disputes over intellectual property rights, market access, and national security concerns. This has led to increased scrutiny of foreign investments and technology transfers, conditionally reshaping the landscape of international business and scientific collaboration. As nations navigate these complex waters, multilateral institutions like the World Trade Organization face pressure to adapt and mediate disputes effectively. The future of global trade will likely be shaped by how successful countries can negotiate new frameworks that address both economic interests and strategic imperatives in an increasingly multipolar world. For a country to have trade surpluses, it means that there must be other countries financially capable of bearing trade deficits. In other words, they must have the financial ability to fund these trade deficits. And of course, international trade practices must be fair. Otherwise, geopolitical problems arise, which can lead to various forms of conflicts between deficit and surplus countries. Conflicts may lead to internal strife, the rise of populism, and the restriction of democratic process. We see this phenomena both in USA and in EU that we have seen in many elections in this year, that the economic problems that mainly comes from trade deficits bring in power populist leaders. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Atsalakis, for your informative presentation. Since you have the obligation to leave the meeting, is there any of the participants want to ask something?
Yes.
I don't want to ask something. I want to say something. Just for the information, Athens Post Athens has been connected to international platforms. And yesterday, today, there are 4,000 people from Europe, Canada, and United States who follow our conference. We are very proud for that. I would like to thank George Atsalakis for the very nice lecture.
Sorry, Professor. I would like to ask some things, Professor Atsalakis.
Yes.
The first thing is the problem of illiteracy in geopolitics. I would like a comment from your side regarding the broader matter of education in Greece, and especially in this matter, in geopolitics. I think that geopolitics education is promoting transparency in decision-making process. In simple words, that makes people to be smarter, to understand easily the way and the why of the official state person's decision, and they can, in this way, direct their vote during the election process. I would like your comment on this.
Look, it is very important the people to be informed with real data and not ideologically informed about the importance of various geopolitics issues, and mainly when there are conflicts with neighbors, to understand the exactly reasons, and then to understand the risk that a conflict may have or may have not And in order to manage this, the political system must make attempts many years before to keep informed the people. If the people are not informed, it will be easy to be manipulated from populists that will try to influence their feelings than they try to solve the real problems of the society. So when the problems in the societies become bigger and bigger and no one solves them, is the golden time for the populists to get the power, because they can promise, of course, with an easy way, solutions that never will be happen, and then can get the votes of these people. And we are in the period that democracy, it has many enemies, internal and external enemies. And only the 50% and maybe less of the countries worldwide are democracies. So it's very easy to lose the democracy under the pressure of too many problems, because when the populist leaders take the power, it's not sure that they will enhance the importance of the institutions and other procedures that guarantee the democracy. In most cases, they try to make more weak all the institutional procedures that we have optimized to secure our democracy. So always the people must be informed and must be informed more and more. Every day must be informed of what's happening in geopolitics. And of course, the economists must know geopolitics, and the geopolitics policymakers must know economics.
And a second one question regarding the role of forecasting in geopolitics. Can you elaborate on this? Because I can't imagine to make a decision without forecasting.
But the role of the forecasting is to find out the threats that are coming in the future, and to find out also the opportunities. Both of these informations are needed in order to make a right decision. So without forecasting, in fact, you cannot decide, at least for the future. And if you don't take into consideration the future, any decision has a limited time. So now the artificial intelligence and other techniques that can learn from a huge amount of data can help in the forecasting much more than ever before. So we have much more tools than ever before to make more precise forecasts, and mainly in the geopolitics, when we want to make forecasts, we must see who are the players, who are the countries that participate in a phenomenon that we examine, and to see the interest that they have. To find out the interest that they have is very important, because this will help for better understanding and better forecasting. For example, we have to know in Turkey what are the interests of Turkey. Okay, Turkey wants to reveal the Ottoman Empire, and the same is done from many countries now. Russia has the same scope, China has the same, Iran has the same scope. Mainly these countries that they didn't adopt, they adopt the economic way of development their countries, but they never adopt the government systems that we have in West, the democratic systems. So these countries, now that they have economic power, they spend the money not for the improve of the quality of the people, but they improve the military equipments, and now they have military power, and they start to threat the international routes of goods, like Houthi is doing, and influence the prices of that goods reach in EU and USA. And also these countries, because they were empire in the past, they try to reveal the influence that they have in the neighbor countries, and we see one country after the other of these four that I mentioned to collaborate together also to achieve these achievements. So we have to see the geopolitics under this scheme, because these four countries already invade in other countries. Turkey has invaded in Syria, Russia in Ukrainian, Iran is it has already proxies that influence the trade corridors. China is ready to invade in Taiwan, and so on.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insightful contribution, and we wish you the best. Now we are proceeding with the second lecture of the day by Mr. Petkidis Vasilio. Some words for Mr. Petkidis. He's graduated from Florida State University in 1990 with a Bachelor of Science in Management and a Bachelor of Science in Multinational Business. He also holds a Master of Science in Accounting and Financial Management from the University of Lancaster and the University of Macedonia. He began his career with Sea Land Service Incorporated in Panama in 1991 in the financial department until 1994, when he became services manager and assistant to the general manager. While in Panama, he was a member of the Maritime Chamber of Panama, served on the Economic Commission for the Panamanian Chamber of Commerce, and served as a member and secretary on the board of the Panamanian Hellenic Community. In 1996, he moved to Greece and joined the Mamidakis Brothers Group as general manager for MS, Hotel and Tourism Enterprise. In 1998, he was transferred to the International Petroleum Trading Division, where he was the CFO, and later he served as acting CFO, COO for the Mamidakis Brothers Group from 2015 to 2017. Today, he's the CEO of Cetraco Jet Oil and has served in the board of directors for several entities. He's member of the Economic Chamber of Greece and member of the Institute of Financial Management of the Hellenic Management Association. He has served as president of the Glyfada chapter of AHEPA, as well as secretary, lieutenant governor, and governor of the board of AHEPA Hellas District 25. Mr. Petkidis, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just to add that today currently I'm the CEO of Mediterranean Gas, which is a company developing a terminal for LNG storage. And I have served as Supreme Governor for Europe for AHEPA. Now, I want to, good morning, Athena, good morning, world, and thank you, Mr. Harokopoulos, Mr. Psathas, Mr. Kalokerinos, and the whole Athens Calls Athens team for having me here today with you. So let me share my screen with you. And we can begin. So today we're entering into a new era, a new world after these elections. So we're going to be looking at the global shift towards sustainable energy, which is critical to addressing climate change and reducing environmental degradation. However, this transition is not solely a matter of technological innovation or economic investment. It is also deeply impacted by the dynamics of war and peace. Today, we'll examine both war and peace influence the global energy transition. Evaluating the effects on infrastructure stability, resource allocation, policy environments, and socioeconomic conditions through an in-depth analysis of how warfare disrupts energy systems, reinforces reliance on fossil fuels, and diverts funding for renewable energy. In contrast, periods of peace provide the stability needed to attract investments, foster international cooperation, and support the implementation of innovative policy frameworks for clean energy. By analyzing these factors, we underscore the importance of peace as a foundation for accelerating the global energy transition. Climate change has intensified the urgency of transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. This shift is essential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and ensure sustainable development. However, the global energy transition is influenced by a complex interplay of factors beyond technology and finance. Geopolitics, peace, and conflict are equally important. While conflict and instability can disrupt energy systems, perpetuate fossil fuel dependency, and divert resources away from sustainable development, peace offers a stable foundation upon which countries can prioritize long-term energy strategies. Today, we examine how the contrasting conditions of war and peace impact the energy transition, providing a comprehensive analysis of their effects on infrastructure, investment, policy, and socioeconomic development. The destructive impact of warfare on energy systems is profound and multidimensional, affecting physical infrastructure, resource availability, and economic priorities. These impacts delay the transition to renewable energy sources and make nations more vulnerable to energy insecurity. One of the immediate consequences of war is the widespread destruction of energy infrastructure, including oil refineries, power plants, transmission lines, and pipelines. The damage to these structures can cripple energy production, create